Welcome to the channel. Something interesting happened today. I have had my very first hang fire today, and it was a scary experience. It was actually quite surprising. I've been shooting for a long time. I've had a lot of misfires, and I never had a hang fire. Now, the difference between the two, a misfire is when you pull the trigger and there's no bang, and there continues to be no bang. A hang fire is when you pull the trigger, there's no bang, and then suddenly there is a bang. Now, the gun I've been using is this Carcano here. You will have seen this firearm before. I repaired the extractor on it. I'm sure if you search for it, you can find it. And I was shooting this here Second World War ammunition. It's been reasonably reliable, but you know, there it is. Now that I've shown it to you, I will put it off the bench, and everything that happens afterwards happens with these blue-tipped, polished inerties that I have prepared for the gunsmithing video. And we can see they're all blue. Everything is nice and safe, no problem. I was on the range, and I was aiming my gun, and I pulled the trigger, bang, and that's all it was. I pulled the trigger, and it was just enough time for me to think, what? You know, kind of like that initial WTF sort of moment. It was just enough time to process it, and then the gun went off. Because it's impossible to tell whether the round that did not go off as a hang fire or misfire, the procedure is always the same, and it's called the Misfire Procedure. Inert. We will load this. Down it goes. Feed it in, close the bolt, and nothing. Now, this is your starting point of the Misfire Procedure. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to stay on target. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to inform the RCO if there's one, and we're going to say, excuse me, RCO, I have a misfire. The next thing we're going to do, provided there is if there is an RCO, he or she might well take over. But in our case, in my case, there wasn't one, so you have to deal with it yourself. Now, you stay on target for 30 seconds, and at that stage, you get an old hat and you put it down. Now, we have to be aware of the situation here, and that is that in there is a round, and the primer might at this very moment be like a joss stick slowly sizzling downwards, and any moment this thing might go off. And if we pull open the bolt with our face behind it, well, two things are going to happen. If that round goes off, all that energy is A, going to take my thumb off, and secondly, it's going to break at least my nose, and if it flies all the way out, probably a little bit more of my face. So first step after our 30 seconds is to remove the head and to place the hand on the bolt in such a way that if the bolt goes, it doesn't take your fingers with it. So we'll carefully lift it up like so. Then I tilt it, and I have my old hat. I will pull back, and the round will fall into the old hat. Now at this stage we can clear the firearm, and we'll put it away, and we'll take this hat and we'll put it over there. We'll pick that up at the end of the shoot. That can stay as far away from me as possible. I don't want any dealings with it, because that still contains a lot of powder, and if that thing goes off, well, all that energy has got to go somewhere, and I don't want it coming my way. Now, anecdotally, I've been told by people that they've had hang fires which lasted 2 minutes, and they went through the whole clearance procedure, threw the round away, and suddenly there was a bang. I don't know whether that's true, but that's what I've been told. The other thing that I would say is that with modern ammunition, I think a hang fire is extremely unlikely. That shouldn't stop you from doing the misfire procedure, though. I don't know why it delayed. I mean, obviously this is old ammo. I assume the powder, I've opened a few of these up. The powder is dry, the powder is good. The primer, I don't know. I mean, the primer, I assume we struck it. It was enough to set off a little corner of it, and it sizzled away and, you know, kind of worked its way through, and suddenly, boom, and there you go. This particular ammunition, I'm still going to shoot it one more time at 300, because what I'm doing is I wanted the chrono data so I can make a copy of this ammunition. You can see here you've got a bottlenose sort of bullet at the head. You have a pretty strong crimp. And in the rear, there's your primer. Now, the head, I can get a reasonable facsimile of, and I will just put powder in until it matches the velocity of the Second World War stuff. And at that stage, you have a reasonably good copy. And that's really what I'm trying to make here. Once I've done that, this particular ammunition, I'm probably just going to inert it. As an experience, it was actually really rather quite terrifying, because you're no longer in control of your firearm. It's kind of, you pull the trigger, you expect there to be a bang. if you pull the trigger and there isn't a bang, I'm cool with that. Then you jump through the hoops and you carry on as usual after. Great. But the fact that you pull the trigger and then suddenly at some stage, it goes off. That second I was effectively tied in, because you have to point the gun at the target. You really have no choice. And then suddenly it went off. Without me being involved in that decision, it went off. It just went when it wanted to. And that was actually really rather quite scary. And I mean, I'm a seasoned shooter. I think I'll be continuing to use it. I'll just be extremely and extra cautious. Final thoughts then? I know some of you will mention this, but so I will beat you to it. Obviously, this stuff is likely to be corrosive. So when I got my gun home, I oiled the barrel immediately, and then I ran it out with boiling water and all the rest of it, and ran 10 million patches through it and hosed it all down with a ballistol and then rubbed it all down. So I'm not going to get any rust. You don't need to fear for my gun. My gun is fine. All that firing I've been doing here has obviously happened with my inert ammunition that I created on that day. I haven't taken any rounds out of the box. So I hope that was interesting, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.